May 4th marked the end of the first season. I don't know what we're going to call it. So, 6 episode run of MCU's and Disney Plus's Moon Knight. They switched. They had an issue with a tweet where they deleted series finale and replaced it with season finale, which led to all sorts of speculation. Still haven't announced anything about a season 2 or if and when the characters might appear again or what's going on really with any of it. Oscar Isaac famously has already talked at length about only signing on for this 6 episode story arc just because he didn't want to be locked down into a long term contract. Probably something to do with the whole Star Wars thing. So trying to block out where this might go. It is a little tough to judge this show as a whole, not knowing if this is it or if there's more to come, because I think honestly, if there's more to the story, then it changes how I view it. At least I don't know about others. I I mean I'd love to hear thoughts if anyone watching this has opinions on this show and what they think about, moving forward, if they'd be satisfied if it ended here and that was it. I'd love to hear it. So, Moon Knight, just to give a quick, as spoiler free rundown as I can, follows Stephen Grant, who is a mild mannered British museum gift shop employee whose world is turned upside down when it turns out that like these sleepwalking fits that he thinks he's having are actually the result of dissociative identity disorder, and his alternate personality is named Mark Spector and is a mercenary who also happens to be the human vessel for the Egyptian god of vengeance Khonshu, which makes Mark the Moon Knight, Khonshu's vessel, a superpowered superhero who's been compared to Batman. Like a lot of people say he's the MCU's answer to Batman, which like I've kind of thought that's what Iron Man was, but I it's interesting too because the show absolutely went in a different route than it seems like the character is portrayed in the comics. I'm not super familiar with the character as far as his comics runs go. Actually, if anyone has any arcs or runs or anything that they can recommend, I'd love to hear that as well because I was really intrigued by a lot of this show. I'll start with I guess like the cons first because I don't really have that many. And they're all really on the technical side of things, and that's not to say that like things like the directing and the production value, any of that is lacking. Really, the only issue I had is the pacing and like the way that things are revealed and the timing of these reveals is just an odd decision all across the board for me. There's some big revelations in episode 5 that I think might have been good to have in episode 3. Like, a lot of stuff is unpacked about this character, but because we know there's only 6 episodes, all of that development is kind of, put to the side for a little bit in episode 6 in the name of getting to, the big action sequences and the climax of the story. So if this was like an 8 episode series and they still had episode 5 exactly as it was, I would be a little bit more like, okay, there's room to go through this and to sort out what all of this means. So as a result of that, there is a lot of loose threads and unanswered questions and things that are kind of left hanging there. And that I think is probably the most maddening part of not knowing if there's going to be another season is they built this great thing, and I think we're going to see this in a lot of MCU properties moving forward, but like the 6 episodes as a whole feels like an origin story. So like how Spider-Man No Way Home ends and it's like wow, we really just had a trilogy of movies to be an origin story for Spider-Man. Like this is kind of how it feels. It's like here's 6 episodes to introduce us to this character and to get us to this place where now it feels like he can like go on adventures. And another thing that they did that I think is really smart here is it's super self-contained. So there's like tertiary little side references and inside jokes to things within the larger MCU to kind of hint at like when this is happening, but it's not like any of the other Avengers or characters or anything shows up here. It is a pretty self-contained story, and the strength of the writing and particularly the performances really like rewards that. It rewards that focus. At the top of everything, the number one reason to watch this show, if you have not yet, if you're not an MCU person, honestly still watch it. It, like I just said, it doesn't tie in a whole lot, and the work that Oscar Isaac is doing here, as Stephen Grant, as Mark Spector, as the Moon Knight, and his alter ego Mr. Knight, who is when Stephen is Moon Knight, it's incredible. I think it might be some of the best acting I've seen in the MCU. Particularly, again, I hate to keep saying just like episode 5, but episode 5, his performance throughout that entire episode is absolutely like jaw-dropping stuff. Like the work he is putting in is unbelievable. He is not mailing it in at all, which feels like can sometimes become like a trapping or a pitfall of trying to portray mental illness in properties, in shows or movies or anything. But what we have here are two characters that feel completely distinct from one another, completely different sets of motivations, responses, body language, mannerisms, and the way that he transitions between the two as the show goes on, and the way he can so definitively and wordlessly showcase that transition at just the drop of a hat is a sight to behold. He's incredible in this role, and this isn't like in the way of like a Robert Downey Jr. or a Charlie Cox as Daredevil, who are the two that come to mind for me when I think of like, oh, that actor was like born for this role. Like I can't picture anyone else doing it. This is just they struck gold hiring Oscar Isaac to do this because he is an unbelievable actor that absolutely put forth every bit of effort that he had into making this something special. And I would like to think that that type of work and that type of dedication, and from his own mouth, his own admittance, he had a blast playing Steven and by all accounts doing the show. So I would think that the itch would be there to continue exploring this, but as he's maintained, it all depends, I guess, on the story. Um, which makes sense because the work here is so strong that you wouldn't want anything less. And that commitment kind of just goes top to bottom on the principal cast. May Calamawy is a incredible female lead to play off of Oscar Isaac. She plays Layla, who is Mark Spector's wife, that has no idea about Stephen Grant or any of that, but she does know about Khonshu and the Moon Knight. And she gets to do so much more than just be like the romantic foil and to just be like the hapless put upon wife character. In particularly the scenes with her and Steven, where she's kind of like working through all of these frustrations and all of this like these inconsistencies with Mark and these frustrations and these mysteries that she's been wondering about, and like you see her like filling in the holes of like, oh wow, he really, like, Steven has no recollection of this. It really is Steven is one person and Mark is another. And watching her go through that and watching her reactions to all these little shifts and changes and everything, it just really grounds the whole thing, and it creates a believable relationship. Ethan Hawke is absolutely incredible as Arthur Harrow, and the scenes that he has with Mark, it's an interesting choice that they have the hero and the villain intersect so much, but those scenes are so compelling because you have two sides of a similar coin that are both so convinced that their way is the right way, and like that struggle is a timeless comic book struggle and conflict, but it's just played out so well. I think F. Murray Abraham is incredible as the voice of Khonshu, but it's really, the story is driven by those four performances, and none of them disappoint. It's so interesting to watch it all unfold. I just wish it had either been like 2 more episodes, or maybe the episodes were like 50-55 minutes instead of 35-40 minutes, because it just feels like there's so much stuffed in to try to get through everything that some of these moments really just don't have time to breathe. I will say I do think this all will be back. I kind of have a theory that they're playing it so close to the vest because Moon Knight, or at least references to him. And this is all just theory here, but like I kind of am wondering if it's gonna come into play with Thor: Love and Thunder, because the villain in Thor: Love and Thunder is Gore the God Butcher. And one thing Moon Knight does is introduce plenty of Egyptian gods that Gore can absolutely butcher on his warpath. But really, I hope that there's more time with these characters. Oscar Isaac is incredible as Moon Knight. He makes Mark Spector and Stephen Grant nothing but believable every step of the way. And that type of legitimacy, like when they announced that he was going to play this role, it made me think that like he had been signed to a huge contract and was going to do this for multiple movies, because like he's an actor of that caliber. Like you get him to be a cornerstone of this franchise. So I can't imagine that they only have it envisioned like that. But with how quiet it's been, I mean, I guess it's just wait and see. If you have thoughts on Moon Knight, or like I said, comic runs that you would recommend for the character, or just where you would like to see him show up, what you would like to see with him as far as interacting with other Marvel characters, or any crossovers, anything like that, please let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the show. I know the finale has been kind of divisive just because it is so packed with stuff that it doesn't really even feel like a lot is resolved. Like there still does feel like a lot of loose ends. Let me know your thoughts on that. If the finale worked for you or didn't, I'd love to hear it. So yeah, let me know your thoughts, and I guess we'll see where he turns up next if he does. Fingers crossed.